you know, there are many reasons we as a nation have moved from this progressive ideal, particularly the freedom
Right.
from want, right? Freedom from want is probably the very bottom of the list right now in terms of what we are even willing to consider in the United States.
Yeah.
So, what are some
Yeah.
tangible steps
Yeah.
that you see that we can do to actually begin the fight for those freedoms, all four of them?
Well, I had great hopes. I had great hopes that we would begin to see the reversal of 40 years of class war from above when we elected Barack Obama. I mean, this was the man who told us, yes, we can, and young people got excited and enthused. We've seen, look, I mean, there's undeniable accomplishments in the Obama administration, including, Obamacare. But Obamacare is hardly the vision of Franklin Roosevelt and hardly the vision of the greatest generation. It's a massive corporate giveaway. I mean, giveaway to the pharmaceutical and health insurance industries. Admittedly, we're covering more people. But I think what we need to remember is this. There is no victory for the four freedoms if we don't get organized. And this is the kind of thing I was talking about last time when I was on. I mean, we have two candidates right now, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton in the Democratic Party, both of whom in their way are trying to lay claim
Yeah.
to the Roosevelt legacy.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton launched, you may recall, her campaign last spring, I think it's about a year ago now, at the Four Freedoms Park in New York City on Roosevelt Island. And I'll just say, and to be fair, what do they call this? Not a confession, but want to make clear I was one of the historical advisors to that park, so
Okay.
I have a particular commitment to that park.
Full
And
disclosure.
Hillary made it a point of launching there. That's the word. Thank you. Full disclosure, the term. And then Bernie Sanders, who it took him a while, but when he finally spoke publicly about where his ideas came from, back in November when he went to Georgetown University and talked about democratic socialism, he made it very clear he was drawing on Franklin Roosevelt's Economic Bill of Rights and Martin Luther King's democratic socialist ideals. And I will tell you that Martin Luther King, whatever criticism he clearly would have had about the New Deal years and the way in which the war effort was pursued, took a real note out of Franklin Roosevelt's playbook and also spoke in terms of minority and poor people's bills of rights, basically to try to remind people of Roosevelt's own economic bill of rights.
Right.
So look, I mean, we need to get organized. I mean, and by the way, I mean, I belong to two labor unions, and I've been very disappointed at the AFL-CIO's lack of commitment to the more progressive of our two Democratic candidates. But somehow or other, we really do need to empower labor. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to do it. We have to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. That's the way you fight poverty. But we then need to empower workers, and that's the way you fight inequality. And I think that's fundamental. So, I mean, my hope is that Bernie Sanders, can pull this out and win the nomination. Beyond that, my hope is that we find a way to get ourselves better organized. Those of us in labor unions should make more of a demand on our labor leadership to start turning out and basically demanding instead. Look, when Barack Obama became president, the labor movement remained quiet. It did not become the loyal opposition, but rather stood by him and refused to offer criticisms. And that was a major mistake. Well, if labor is going to support Hillary Clinton, if it has to be, then damn it, my labor unions and other labor unions must be a more vocal, if necessary, loyal opposition and make demands on these Democrats. They've gotten away too long with a retreat from the
Yeah.
tradition of Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah, yeah. I have a dear friend of mine who in an interview today said that it's at the point where she's demanding that the Democratic Party reintroduce themselves to identify who they really are and what they really stand for, because they no longer stand for what she firmly believed all her life, voting for years upon years, all Democrats. But now it's a time to really reevaluate that. And I love the way that you put it, that they've just gotten so far away from that FDR tradition that they're not recognizable right there. And I think that's where we are.
Right.
Professor Kaye, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep you if we're running out of time. But the thing is, I'll name names in all of this.
Go ahead.
I mean, think about the retreat from the Roosevelt tradition. Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter is the man who introduced, and no one seems to remember this, but go look at his speeches, the idea of austerity. He was the one who called for austerity in government. He's the one He's the one who began the deregulation of finance, the deregulation of transportation. He paved the way. If you, well, I think it was Truman or someone said, if you're given a choice between a phony Republican and a real Republican, you might as well choose the real thing. And basically, Jimmy Carter became the phony Republican, and Ronald Reagan was the real one, and people stayed home basically, or they voted for Reagan. So you got Jimmy Carter. Then you have Mondale. Everyone remembers it. By the way, how old are you, Ben?
I'm
how old
old enough. I missed Mondale by a little bit. I'm 36.
Okay, well, you're a boy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant that in the nicest way, okay?
Wait a minute.
Sorry. Bad. No, you know what I mean.
I know what you meant, but that's a good one. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, what I'm getting at in that is that Mondale said, you know, Reagan isn't going to tell you, but we're going to tell you, we're going to raise your taxes. If that's the best the Democrats could do, we knew we were in trouble.
Yeah.
Then Dukakis, who was a policy wonk and offered very little, he lost. He was 17 points ahead of Bush, and then he still lost the presidential campaign.
Yep, I remember that one.
Then let's come to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, look, I mean, let's count the ways. NAFTA, okay, the Communications Act.
Yep.
The deregulation of the banks, the end of Glass-Steagall. The bill enacting, you know, basically mass incarceration. I mean, over and over again, which, by the way, garnered the lobbying support of Hillary Clinton repeatedly. We could also talk, we don't have time to talk about how he almost gave away Social Security to Newt Gingrich, but we'll take that up another time. And then you think about how over and over again these Democrats are, they go, at best, they run like Eisenhower Republicans. The only thing that we can at least say now is Bernie Sanders recognized what Americans, young Americans especially, were missing. And basically, he tapped into this incredible, if you like, Americanism, the best of Americanism. And, you know, over and over again, wins young people's votes to the tune of 85% in some states. I mean, think about that. I mean, he puts social democracy back on the public agenda. I mean, this has been an extraordinary year. We may not win the way we want to, but it's been an extraordinary year.
Absolutely.
And we should build on our accomplishments.
Absolutely. Professor Kaye, I am out of time, but I would like for you to tell everyone how they can not only get up with you, but how they can get a copy of your book.
Okay, please, if you get a chance, if you're on Twitter, it's at Harvey J. Kaye. That's Kaye. Ben, remember, Kaye.
I got you right this time.
Right. Okay, Harvey J. Kaye. Also, if you can, please do pick up my book, The Fight for the Four Freedoms. If you want to look, I think it'll give you energy. I think it can inspire. I mean, you know, it's not over yet. Basically, it's up to us to make America great again, our way, great and good again, not the Trump way.
Absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely. And I look forward to hearing from any of you. Please don't hesitate to write me if you're on Twitter.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Professor Kaye. It's always a pleasure. We'll get to some more deep dives. Actually, a couple of people who sit in on the show with me, they want to connect with you and for us to do a panel where we can actually talk about this at great length and not try to squeeze all of this substance into 30 minutes. We probably need a panel that lasts at least 2 hours to really unpack this in a meaningful way. So thanks so much for joining us.
I would love to come on for longer. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Ben.
My pleasure. You know, I think they've completely co-opted the fight for freedom from fear. They've co-opted that and turned that into the war on terror. So that needs to be reclaimed as well. And I meant to mention that while Harvey was on the line, but we'll talk about that next time. But most definitely, the fight for freedom from want is something that I think is overwhelmingly neglected here in the United States. So it's amazing how far we've moved away from those things while simultaneously touting that generation that laid those foundations to be things that we should build upon. They completely removed those four pillars of progressivism and still lay claim to that generation. I think that's one of the most telling tactics of political propaganda, and you see it not only from the right. In this conversation, we're specifically talking about conservatism and those Democrats, you know, the names that he named that moved us away from the focus there, the move from America being about people to being about enterprise, solely about enterprise.